Welcome back, guys. Today I have a treat for you. I am here with Aaron of Aaron Howland Excavating, and he's going to show us a little bit about how he built this. What do you call it?
I call this Big Red.
The Big Red. Big Red is a gasification boiler. And Aaron, can you tell us a little bit about this?
Absolutely. So I've been burning wood for a long time. I actually started in the early mid-90s. I actually started with a hot air wood furnace in a metal shed, and I heated the house for a couple of years with that. And then I ended up getting a central boiler, and that basically rotted out. That was 23 years old maybe when it started to rot out. It got to the point where it just couldn't be fixed anymore. So I decided to build Big Red here.
Yeah.
And this is a gasification boiler.
And you've always lived in this area, right?
I
Mayfield
yep,
area?
Mayfield, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Mayfield, by the way, is only a few miles from Galway. I'm about 15-20 minutes away from you.
Yep.
And today the weather is about, what, it feels like
pretty cold.
5 degrees, right?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
You know what? I gotta verify this. It is super cold today, but you're used to this.
I am.
Yeah.
Yep, I am.
Let me show them real quick. Oh, it's 11 degrees. Aaron, when did you build this? And what do you use for your wood?
Yeah, so I'd have to actually probably count on my fingers and actually look at some records, but I think it was about 12 years ago. It was between 10 and 12 years ago. I don't know. You get older, time flies. I can burn pine in this. It's not ideal, and I'll show you in a couple minutes the tubes. The tubes had a tendency to fill up with like creosote, but you can burn the pine. I try to burn hardwood, but basically I burn wood that comes off of my job sites. I'm an excavation contractor, so if we clear a lot, I typically get the wood here.
Okay. I notice you have a lot of logs over
yes,
here,
yep.
And a lot of stuff over here too. In my case, you know that I have a central boiler CL6048, and I burn a lot of softwood pine as well, stuff that was laid or left behind by the previous owner. So what I try to do is I mix it up. Right now I'm burning half hardwood and half pine, but some of the wood that I have, as you've seen probably on my videos, it's kind of like green wood, not dried. It's like 30-40% humidity. But what I do is I'll throw 1 or 2 pieces in there of that green stuff on top of the dry stuff, and it's working out for me.
So basically,
yeah.
You can burn the pine in a gasifier. You're better off if you certainly let it season. Everything I'm burning now in this gasifier is actually green. There is nothing seasoned here.
Oh,
and
really?
I would guess, because this pile over here was just cut this year. I would guess it's mostly oak. I would guess it's probably 50%.
50%. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I mean, it's wet. It is really wet.
Oh, okay.
The biggest thing with these gasifiers is you got to keep a coal bed in the bottom, and we'll show you in a minute how it works. And in case you don't know, basically what a gasifier is, it's basically an upside down fire.
Okay.
You have a coal bed in the bottom. You have a slit in the floor that the hot gases go through. It's mixed with air or oxygen, and it reburns. So you're basically using all that smoke for fuel. And the thing with a gasifier is your primary chamber where you put your wood in, the top chamber, basically gasification starts at about 500 degrees.
Okay.
So once that wood gets to around 500 degrees, then it starts releasing the tars, you know, and the gas out of the wood. And that's basically what you're shooting for in a gasification boiler. Okay. You don't want a rip-roaring fire in the top, because you're not using the fire in the top for your heat exchange. Like Ovi's boiler is a traditional boiler.
Yes.
So that fire is actually heating the water primarily and only heating the water is that fire.
Okay.
Gasification, you're basically using that top chamber to make the gas.
Okay.
And then that gas is burnt, and then it goes through heat exchangers or tubes, and that's where you extract your heat.
I know I hear a lot of guys on the web saying specifically for the central boilers, they're finicky and all the wood has to be almost dry, very, very dry. But that is not the case with this one. So, Big Red.
So yeah, so one of the things with Big Red that I kind of had, I looked at all of them at the time, and there weren't that many. You know, when I built this 12 years ago, it wasn't that popular.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think at the time the laws were even in place that you had to have a gasification boiler. Now you do in New York.
Yeah.
But the one thing I wanted to do, I wanted to build a boiler big enough to heat everything here that I have to heat if I wanted to. And I'm only heating my house right now with this. But the second thing, the second reason I wanted to build this so big is I felt that if I had a big enough firebox, I could overfill it, and the wood would dry because it held more capacity.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, it actually worked out. I was correct. It does work well that way. You know, so that's one of the reasons why I built this so big. I can kind of get away probably with a little more than maybe somebody that has a boiler sized for their heat load. The firebox isn't going to be quite as big, so they're not going to be able to put that overabundance of extra wood in there and give it a chance to dry, you know, to get the gasification.
Now, Aaron, how many quarts do you estimate that Big Red burns every year?
That's a tough one because I never really keep track, but
Yeah.
I would guess, like last year, it was mostly just pine, which, you know, doesn't quite last as long. I was just heating the house last year, and I do lose some, which we'll talk about after. I do lose some heat because the house is so far, but I think I was probably 7 quart.
7 quarts?
Yeah, about 7
Oh.
quarts last year.
And
heat the house.
in my CL6048, I estimate, I think it's somewhere between 10 and 11 quarts.
Okay.
And mine, it's a lot smaller than Big Red, so I had to split a lot more.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's go see.
All right.
Show us around.
Yeah.
Let me pull the camera off of this.
So I'm going to trick this right now, and I have the differential on this boiler set to 175 to 185, which is typical. So
Okay.
I'm just going to trick this and get this sucker fired up.
Okay. Look at that.
Okay, so she is running. Probably going to take a minute for it to fire up. You can see the steam starting to come.
Yes. Well, it's a nice, super windy day today.
And you know, the funny thing about gasification, and I'm actually going to show Ovi here this in a minute, once this thing actually starts burning like it needs to be burning and gasifying, it's really weird. And I thought it was the strangest thing when I built this.
Yeah.
The smoke does not smell like smoke, Ovi. It has a sweet smell to it. It does not. Right now it smells like smoke because
Yeah.
it's not gasifying yet.
But I guess yours is
You will
different.
notice the difference when it's gasifying. It almost smells like candy. I don't know. They say it's a chemical change in the actual wood, the pyrolysis, you know, with the where it makes the gas, and it's really strange. It's a strange phenomena.
But I can tell you now, your smoke smells different than mine. Even
Already?
now,
Already,
already.
yeah.
Yeah. Mine smells like pure smoke. This is different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more pleasant.
Yeah, you'll definitely see a difference once it actually starts rolling in there. In fact, I'm going to open the primary chamber right now, and we'll see. It's probably not really kicked right up yet.
Now, how high do you think this is, Aaron?
Well, when I built this, I built it in my body shop up there.
Okay.
And I had to actually build it inside and make the framing for the tin and make it moldable.
Wow.
And then unbolt it and get it out because I have an 8-foot overhead door on the shop.
Okay.
And it wouldn't fit out the door.
Whoa.
So I would say that's close to 10 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
And
5.
what's the red lights?
Okay, so the red lights come on when the thing is in a fire, when it's ready.
You going to say something about the height? You're 5?
So I'm only, I mean, I'm not tall, I'm 5'7", but you can see, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is big.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
It is huge.
Yes, this is a 36 by 36 door right here. This is one of the things when I built this, and you'll think this is pretty cool when I show you. You cannot buy any boiler where the door goes to the floor. They always had that little lip, you know, you open the door and it's down in.
Yeah.
And that's one of the features that I wanted. I wanted the floor, even with the bottom of the door, it's so much easier to clean out. Because the floor, you know, you're not reaching down in. I think the reason that you can't buy them that way commercially probably is liability. They're afraid Amber might come out and burn somebody.
Yeah.
But and you can see
now Aaron, I see three doors. I don't know what the top and the bottom one are.
So this one I'm opening now is a primary chamber. This is where you put your wood in.
Okay.
I'll show this to you in a minute once she gets roaring.
Okay.
And these are the heat exchangers that actually extract the heat out of the hot gas and heat the water.
Okay.
And then the bottom is where the magic happens, which I'll show too. But you can see, I mean, I built this pretty heavy. You know, even the hinges, you're not going to buy a boiler with hinges like they're 1 inch
Oh my gosh, this is
super
knob,
heavy. Another feature that I designed, this knob is the gasket wears.
Okay.
You can tighten this knob in. It sucks the whole hinge in and tightens the door, so you can get many years out of the gasket around there.
Okay.
You can actually adjust the door by just turning these with a wrench.
I know someone's going to ask, can you build them a boiler?
Legally in New York, I can't anymore.
No.
All right, so this is the primary.
Wow. Holy.
You can see the wood I got in there.
Oh, you got it stacked up.
Yeah, and these were all green pieces, but they've been sitting in here long enough. You can see they're dried out, they're checking.
Now, Aaron, when did you load this boiler this morning?
Well, there was actually a lot of wood left in from last night.
Oh.
So I added maybe this here, but again, I keep this boiler overfilled because I'm burning green wood, so it gives it a chance to dry. I can, if I were to start with just a coal bed of 4 inches and, you know, an empty boiler, I can get maybe 22 hours out of this.
Oh, okay.
So
that was my next question. When do you think it'll last till when? Till tomorrow?
If you wanted to, but I'm gonna stuff it full again.
Okay.
I'll stuff it full again probably, you know, around 5, 6 o'clock tonight, so that again I'm drying my green wood. So by the time it gets down to here, I've got a nice coal bed. That's the main thing with a gasifier. You want to keep a nice coal bed. I'm just gonna pick this stuff around.
I know mine I have to load twice a day. Once in the morning at 7 and once at night at 7 p.m. And when I come out in the mornings, it's all ash. There's a couple of times when it burned too quickly because of the softwood, and I had nothing but ash and very few coals.
That's a pain. That is a pain. So basically what's, actually before I shut this, so basically what's happening here is there's air being forced in through these 2 tubes on the side, and that's actually an upgrade that I did this year. They used to just come out the back. Actually, it was, when I first built this, it was a totally different design, and I'll explain it as we go. But it's basically forcing air in here to stoke this fire. There's a slit down on the floor. That's why I was kind of kicking that around, but you can't see it. I was wondering if we could see it. But we can't. But there's a slit in the floor. And those hot gases go down through there and they get reignited.
Okay, it goes down,
So I will shut this up. So they go down, the hot gases pass through the floor, and you can hear it.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm going to take this off.
That's kind of like a insulation?
So I can show you.
I can hear it.
Let's see if I can get this off. It's very hot. I can't touch it.
It's like a roaring fire.
Oh yeah. So you've seen just a minute ago how that really wasn't much of a fire going in there, in the top.
It's even more here?
Oh yeah. See if I can get this off. Oh, here. This is super hot. There it is.
Oh, wow.
Come right over here, Obi.
Okay.
Right on the side. That's the smoke burning.
Oh.
See
Wow,
that?
yeah.
That burns at over 1,000 degrees.
That's oh, wow. Okay.
You can see what it's did to that steel if you want to pan in there.
Yeah.
That steel basically protects my door.
Have you had to replace a steel before?
Yeah, I never have.
Okay.
But it's about there.
Yeah.
You know,
And this is where some of all the ashes fall down to?
They do, you know, and you just scrape them out. I mean, I'm bad. You should probably clean it out once a week. Sometimes I'll go 3 weeks before I clean it.
Okay. And what are those bricks in there?
That's to keep the flame from hitting the door too. So
okay.
So I'm going to shut this off for a second.
Okay.
Because I really want to get that thing back on.
Hey, I'm warming up here. I can feel the heat.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so I just shut it off.
Okay. Okay, the fire is...
It might jump back at you.
Okay, okay.
The gas.
I'm ready to jump backwards if I have to. Okay.
Okay. I gotta try and get that plate back in there. It's super hot. I mean, this plate, well, I'll show the folks how hot this is.
Okay, that's a little bit of snow. Wow.
And we just started that, just on video.
Just a couple of minutes ago, yeah.
Yeah, that's how hot it gets.
I'll
and this insulation that you see here, again, that is to protect the door too. Because I'll tell you, basically what happened, you're still rolling, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So basically what happened, last year, I screwed up and I forgot to put this thing in. I had to go somewhere or something. I forgot to put that in and put the insulation in.
Okay.
And this door warped.
Oh.
It warped bad. I mean, it was like this.
So that's another door, or did you?
No. So what I did, I actually did this year. What would happen is every time the fire would get going, the door would go poop, and it would suck in from the heat. So this year, on my first fire up, I waited to that sucker to suck in, and then I welded this rectangular tubing on there.
Oh, I see.
So now it doesn't do that anymore.
Oh,
now
okay.
it's nice and fairly straight again. But again, it's key that you, obviously, it's key that you put this thing in there to protect it so that doesn't happen.
I see.
You know, because it gets so hot. I mean, it's
over 1,000 degrees.
Over 1,000 degrees.
And I could feel it was warming me up all the way over here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it is super, super hot. I might have to throw some snow on it.
You can cook an egg here in just a second.
You know, Obi, we're burning this gas, but actually, during the Great Depression, and you can build these, they were actually building gasifying units, not burning the gas, and you can actually run a car off of that gas.
A car?
The wood gas. You can actually use it in a regular, with very few modifications. You can actually run a vehicle off of that gas.
Okay.
And it was kind of one of my harebrained ideas, and I never did it. I was always going to try to extract some of that gas and not burn it and run a generator off of this, but I never did. Maybe someday I will. I don't know. But
that's a good idea.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it, how that wood can, you know, produce that flammable gas. usually keep a roll of this. This is fireproof insulation, and it just protects that door. Eventually, when I have nothing better to do, what I'm actually going to do as an upgrade is I'm going to cut this in. If you want to shoot this right here.
Okay.
Eventually, I'm going to cut this out. This is fire brick.
Yes.
And I'm going to make it extend out a little more.
Okay.
And put the rock sole in here. Then I won't need to monkey with all that with the plate and everything to protect the door. But
okay,
it's one of those projects that
you said fire brick, right?
Inside there, yes.
Oh, okay.
But eventually, I'd like to make this, in other words, thicker.
Thicker, yeah.
And then put that insulation in there. You know, weld it back up.
Maybe like double the size.
Yeah.
Than what it is now.
Yeah. You know, and that way, I won't have to do that. But I mean, you only open that every few weeks to clean it up.
Yeah.
You know. All right, so I just showed that bottom gasification chamber where the magic happens. So basically what happens from there, that burnt gas, that heat from that burnt gas travels along the sides down there, and it goes to the back. There's an opening in the back of the boiler. It goes up through a steel pipe.
Okay.
And then it goes into this heat exchanger. And I'll show you the front side. The back side's kind of a pain to open. I don't want to get a bunch of dust in the blower, but
okay.
I'll show you the front, which will show you just basically the same. So here,
so that's a heat exchanger.
these are the heat exchangers.
Okay.
So they're steel tubes. They're surrounded by water. So the bottom here, that it basically, and we'll show the back in a minute. So basically it's the same in the back, the door, but there's a shelf in the back, like this. So it's forcing the heat coming up from the bottom to go through these 10 tubes. And then of course, once it comes out here in the front, then it has nowhere else to go but through there. So it goes back through there and then right up through the chimney on the top.
How many gallons of water do you estimate?
I believe it's just under 500 gallons.
On the
water,
500, yeah.
Including the pipe. Now, this boiler is just heating my house right now. It's not heating, I have a bunch of buildings on the property here. But my house, the heat exchanger on my house is 500 feet away from this boiler. And I don't know if you want to pan around, Ovi, but the house is right up there on that hill, that gray house.
Okay.
So you can see how far it is.
All the way out there.
Yes.
And this is your shop.
This is the shop, yep.
And this here?
That's not heated anymore. That was my first house out of high school. And it's just, it needs to be demolished, but I actually want to put a replacement there so I can rent it out, but I have to do it in the same day.
Okay.
So that's why I haven't.
Okay.
But it also, at one point, if you just want to get sidetracked for a minute and walk ahead.
Sure.
This boiler has the capacity, and it did at one point, heat the house next door here, that white one.
Oh, okay.
And that white shop right there too. And that's a big shop.
Oh, okay.
That's a very big shop. I mean, you could fit an excavator, a dump truck in there, and
okay.
so it does have the capacity to do that.
So yeah.
The thing, like if we're going back to what I was saying originally, as you add more of these buildings and heat, then you have to have a little bit drier wood because you have the less capacity in there of the wood being able to sit there for a long time and dry because it's burning more. So that's very hot coming out of the bottom, but this thing is so efficient. Now the tubes are kind of dirty right now. I usually, actually on a Sunday, every Sunday I clean these.
Okay.
And I just have a brush that I run through. But this thing is so efficient that it's, by the time it goes through the top tubes and come out the chimney, you could put your hand over the chimney up there.
Let me see if I can get a close up here.
Just don't melt your camera because those bottom tubes, there's a lot of heat coming out.
Oh yeah, I can feel it.
But it's amazing with this Scotch. It's called a Scotch Marine heat exchanger. It's actually what you will actually see these in like a commercial boiler in a hospital or a high rise or whatever. Okay. This is how all the gas boilers are built.
A Scotch Marine.
Scotch Marine heat exchanger. And this is all your commercial boilers in these big factories or hospitals or whatever, of course they run on gas, natural gas.
Yeah.
But this is what they use because it extracts the most heat, you know, out of the system.
Okay.
So let me close this up.
Wow.
I gotta actually use a bar because I actually just changed this gasket not that long ago, so she's not broken in yet, and this doesn't get opened off.
Yeah.
So it's a little tight.
Yeah, I said when I replaced the gasket on my boiler, it was a little hard to close in the beginning. It took about a week or two for me to close it nice and tight. Yeah.
And I actually, this bolt right here, I didn't bother to do it. I've been just using that bar. But again, when I designed this and built this bolt right here, if you back it out or tighten it, it sucks this whole thing in. There's a mechanism I built. So I actually don't need to use that bar if I wanted to adjust the door.
Okay.
But I don't know if it would work now because it's 12 years old. The nuts are probably rusted in there, I would assume. But yeah, so that's that. So if you want to go around the back.
Yeah. What's in the back, Aaron?
Okay, so this is where the blower is, and we'll just make a quick pit stop here. So I was telling Ovi earlier, I actually, to get to this point, I actually had a few different designs that I've kind of modified over the last 10-12 years. And when I originally built this, I had a different blower setup, and you'll see the one I'm using now. But when I originally built this, the blowers were a little undersized. I had them in here.
Okay.
I actually built this louver door, and I had 3 small blowers. There's 2 of them. One of them is gone. I had 3 small blowers. I had these 2 right here.
Okay.
Went to the primary air where the actual fire is.
Okay.
And I basically had them plumbed into a piece of 2-inch pipe with holes in the side, and that's what used to blow on the fire inside the boiler. But I found they were a little undersized. And then the third one was for the gasification air that's injected into that nozzle.
Okay.
But I kind of abandoned that. And hey, I mean, it's a learning process, right? I designed and built this, and I kind of, you know, modified as I went.
Yeah.
So I ended up using a full-size furnace blower.
Oh wow.
As you will see here. Okay. And as you can see, they're not 2-inch tubes. They're larger 4x4 square tubes. These are the originals right here. As you can see, it was just 2-inch pipe.
Okay.
And that's basically what I had before. I had these 2 going in the top, and then you can see where I welded that over and capped that. They were going down the side. But I found it wasn't enough air, so I ended up doing this. I actually replaced this year. I was telling Ovi earlier, I did have a leak. These 2 tubes, they go through and blow the air into the fire. Actually, one of them started leaking. The creosote just completely ate it up. So I just replaced that. And I actually changed the design a little bit. And I'll send Ovi a picture right here, and he'll put that in the video, and you'll see the original air box. I kind of modified this and changed it. This year. This right here, these 2 knobs will control the air volume going in. Okay. So I can adjust, you know, how much air. And sometimes you have to change that depending on the species of wood, how wet it is. Right now I got this choked right off. That's the primary air where that fire is, the actual fire is, because it's pretty decent wood. It's wet, but it's hardwood.
So right now it's open.
It's right now. It's choked off.
Or choked off. Okay.
Very little air going in there.
Oh,
As
okay.
you can see when we opened it, it wasn't like. But I can open that right up, and you'll see a big difference, you know, in that fire. But you don't really need that. You only want enough air going in there and a big enough fire to produce that coal bed and make the gas. Otherwise, you know what actually happens. If you have too much air going into the primary, what you're doing is you're just blowing all your heat quickly through those tubes and right out the stack, so you're heating the outdoors.
So yeah, I didn't know you can control the air on these. On my CL6048, you do not control the air. The damper solenoid turns on, opens up the damper, and it's just one constant flow of air. But this is different.
Right. And I'm not making a plug to a certain company, but I'll be honest with you. I think the best manufacturer now, as far as commercial boilers, if you were to buy one of these, is Heatmaster.
Heatmaster. I've seen a few on video online.
So what Heatmaster has, and it's really ingenious, and I wish I was smart enough with like electronics, because I would do it on my own boiler. They have this control here, just like I have, and the control here. This control here is for the secondary air, where the gasification is. So on Heatmaster, they have a computer board. It's a Siemens computer board on there.
Okay.
And they run an oxygen sensor. Okay. They have an oxygen sensor right down in that secondary combustion chamber. And they found through research, and this is common, I don't think Heatmaster found this, but it's just common knowledge that you want about 5% of oxygen for the best gasification. So they have an oxygen sensor, they have the controller, and they have a actuator like what this is here, which I'll show in a minute. And it constantly, as it's burning, opens and closes these to maintain 5%.
Okay. So
it's no matter what you throw in it, you could throw pine in it, you can throw hardwood in it, could be a little wetter, a little drier, and that thing will automatically just turn it. It's like turning a faucet on and off all day long. Whenever that's running, that'll do. Unfortunately, I don't have that set up here. I wouldn't even know how to wire that up. But it, you know, I keep it at this setting right here. This is choked off. There's like maybe an inch gap of air going through there right now. This one is a little bit more for the secondary, and it seems to work for most of the wood that I use. There's probably times when I might throw something a little wetter in. Might not be ultimate, might not be that 5% you want, but it works. So.
But you like this setup a lot better than what you had before.
Yes, yeah. No, this year, like I say, when I did all this, and I mean, this has been within the last few weeks, I changed all this, and you'll see, you know, the picture of the original.
Oh, okay.
This setup is certainly much better, you know. And basically, what happens when that gets up to temperature, just like yours, you have that spring damper that closes, chokes the fire. Yeah. Basically, it does the same thing here. The only difference is, I didn't use a spring damper. A lot of the manufacturers do central boiler on their gasification units. Okay. They use this similar spring damper. They're not quite as good as what I did here. I use what's called a linear actuator, and I'm gonna linear actuator. Yeah, and I'm taking this apart. I'll just actually show you what it looks like here.
I still can't get over how big this thing is.
So that right there is the linear actuator. So when that fire is done, and the water's up to temperature, I will actually show you. Keep the camera on.
Oh, there it goes.
And it tightens right down.
And there's a rope seal here too.
Yes.
Kind of like on the door. Okay.
And that's, like I say, the central boiler gasifiers, not picking on them, but them and a couple of the other brands out there. Yeah. They don't use that. They use just that spring thing, and they don't close as tight as that. Obviously, you can see that cranks right down.
Yes,
this one is rated for 30 pounds, so
okay,
it'll torque it down with 30 pounds pressure. Wow. And it's not like right now. This is called a spring return actuator. So right now, it's not being held down by electricity. So the nice thing about this is, Obi, if you run out of power, if your power goes out in a storm, it'll close it. It won't be stuck open and have a runaway fire that burns up your boiler. It's once the power goes off, a spring actually makes that return.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, very nice system you have here. I'm sure it took you, that's a lot of work. It took you a while.
It did.
To build this.
I mean, I have all kinds of stories. I can tell you one story. The one year I was burning nasty wet pine. I mean, the stuff was horrible, and it plugged up those tubes up in here that I showed you in the front.
Okay.
And it plugged them up bad, and I just couldn't get the thing it just couldn't breathe. So I thought, well, there's a shelf in here, as I explained in a few minutes ago. I decided I'll take the shelf out, and I don't care if I get the heat exchange. I'll just let the heat go right up through the chimney because it was plugged up so bad. So this was in the evening. It was starting to get dark. So I took the shelf out. Stupid move. Because that's so hot. Of course, the stack was getting hot because it wasn't going through the water.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I had a leak around the sheet metal where the chimney is, and creosote had dripped, and that got so hot that the whole inside underneath this tin, the roof, was on fire. It was on fire.
Scared you?
I had a problem. Yeah. I had the water was shut off in the body shop, but I couldn't run a hose out. I'm out here with snow trying to put the fire out, and it was a creosote fire. So I've learned by my mistakes.
I've heard of creosote fires. That's why I clean my chimney at least once a year. I didn't do it this year, but hopefully nothing bad will happen.
You know, as long as you don't have a leak where the pipe goes through it, it'll be fine. Those outside boilers, they'll just burn themselves right out. In fact, my central boiler brand, like what you have, the one I had before that this replaced, that thing used to actually have a flame when it was burning all the time right out the top. I don't know if you get that or not, but it was like a little flame a lot of times. Yeah.
No, not mine.
Yeah.
Cool.
But no, I did quite a few modifications from the beginning, but I'm pretty happy with where I got it now. I mean, you can see it. That thing is cooking when it's going.
Yeah, and I see what kind of pump is that on the floor?
That was one that burned out on me last year. That's a Taco 0013. I'm running.
Oh, 0013.
Running two Taco 0013, which is a 1/6 horsepower. I have one here at the boiler, and I also have one. I know it sounds crazy, and it's not a common thing for these boilers. I actually have one under the ground. I can show you.
Under the ground?
Under the ground, yes.
Okay.
Yep, because the run is so far from here to the house.
It is.
It requires
500 feet. It's a lot.
Yeah, it requires 2 pumps. So you could technically, I could have put 2 back to back, but they told me, I actually had the Taco company give me the recommendation, the design of what I needed, and they said it'd be better if you could go like around halfway or even a third of the way. Keep them spaced. So that's basically what I did, and I can show you that.
I have a Taco 007 on mine.
They're very common.
Yeah.
007. Yeah, that's typically what you run. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably the original, so I bought a backup just in case.
And my lines too, by the way, that 500-foot. These are 1.5 inch.
Which one is the one that goes into the house, and which one comes back? I guess that one, the one at the bottom, right?
This one right here goes up to the house.
Okay.
And this is the return.
The return. And you said 1.5 inch lines.
1.5 inch packs. And then there's another zone here. And that just goes, right now, that just goes to the shop. That used to actually go next door, as I showed you earlier in the video.
And that's another 0013?
No, that's a smaller one. I think that's a 0010. double 11. The 13 is a big pump, you know, but I'm pumping 500 feet.
Okay.
And the thing about the 13 here too, that has its own power coming in, because this is actually a 230 volt pump. You know, the boiler is 110, but I ran a 230 volt pump because they're much more efficient as far as energy usage by a lot, by a full amp. So, yeah, because I think the 110 model is 2 amps, and I know this only draws 1 amp, which is like, it's basically like having a 60 watt light bulb run 24/7. So I have two.
So it's efficient.
I have two 60 watt light bulbs all the time on here, basically, with the two pumps.
Yeah, that's not a whole lot.
It's not. I mean, you figure what the cost of propane is, you know.
Yeah.
So, and it's, you know, the nice thing about the boilers. I mean, somebody can fart in the Middle East, and your propane will go up drastically overnight.
Yeah.
You know, where with this thing here, I mean, I don't care what the world does, because I have 17 acres here. I'll go back and cut down a tree if I have to and heat my house, you know what I'm saying? So.
And you also have propane as a backup like I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I only use propane in April, maybe May, when I turn off my boiler off, and then I go back to propane. And I turn my boiler back on in late November. So, yeah, well, 5 months out of the year.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing about the propane too, if you have, I don't know, do you have a sidearm on your hot water heater? Do you heat your hot water with your boiler over or not?
Yes,
okay.
I do. Yes,
okay.
I do.
So
yeah.
so the thing too is, you know, if the fire goes out, or you know, you have an unexpected emergency, somebody in your family goes to the hospital, you know, and you haven't got a backup plan for somebody to fill your boiler, if you have the sidearm and you run your circulator pumps, it'll be just enough heat with your water heater. A little expensive during that period of time,
yeah,
but it'll be just enough heat that your lines won't freeze.
Okay.
If you have the sidearm, because that will slightly heat your loop going back to the boiler, and it'll keep it from freezing. So.
Show you closing that huge door.
So yeah, I basically, when I built this, I tried to, you know, because I do welding for people. I'm an excavating contractor, but I do welding. So in the local area, I mean, I've welded on a lot of them. I mean, Mahoning, Johnson, Taylor's. I've welded on just about all these, because let's face it, I mean, eventually they rot out, and it's just Mother Nature. So I basically, when I built this, I tried to pick the best out of the best of all the designs and incorporate it in this when I built this.
And you came up with Big Red.
Big Red.
Yeah. Nice design. And obviously it's on top of a big concrete slab.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, I like your setup. You got that cover and everything. I was actually always going to do that here. Of course, you can't see it now. It's all covered with snow and wood and a mess, but this actually is all concrete here. Basically over to that pine tree that's all over. And that's eventually what I was going to do here. I was going to do some steel, because I don't really build out of wood, but I love building out of steel. So I was going to do steel bar joists and put a metal roof to store my wood. But I just, life happens. You never do everything you want.
I was looking at that machine, and that's how you used to split the logs or cut the logs?
That's correct.
What do you call that?
I built that. I use it basically just to split the wood now. For quite a while, I used to actually shear the wood with it too, because it would shear a good 12-inch piece. But I got a little overzealous last year. I don't know if you can zoom in on that camera and see those welds right up there going diagonal.
I can definitely zoom in software.
So I got a little overzealous, and I was actually shearing logs, and I kind of said this year, no more shearing. I won't be lazy. I'll actually cut the logs with the chainsaw first and just split them. And you can see that's pretty heavy duty. As you can see, everything I built is heavy duty. Probably too heavy, but that's all 1-inch plate. That's all 1-inch plate, and that rectangular tubing is actually 3/4 inch thick wall tubing,
3/4 inch. Okay.
3/4 inch thick.
Okay.
You know, so that's some serious way. I mean, you could hold up a tractor trailer with that thing.
Wow.
I mean, it's heavy metal.
Definitely, it looks like it. Yeah.
But yeah, I basically what I'll do is I'll take that thing, I'll pinch the log to hold it, so
Yeah.
it's at a nice even height where I'm not bending over while I'm cutting. I'll cut it into chunks, let it fall where it falls, and then I just lower that thing over it and split it. And I don't have any this year, but in the past when I've had time and I've gotten ahead of the game,
Yeah.
I used to buy those firewood bags like the commercial guys use, the white bags. I think potato companies.
I've seen them.
Yes, and I used to actually split my wood
Yeah.
right over top of the bag and just let it fall in the bag.
I seen those bags in a company south of Amsterdam.
Okay.
They sell it like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's how I used to do it here, and it worked out really convenient.
Next time you split wood with this, give me a call and I'll come and record you for a few
Okay,
minutes.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is the pit I was talking about, because the boiler over there to the left. That's the boiler.
All the way out there, okay?
Yeah. We are 100 feet to the plenum on the furnace at the house.
Yeah. There's the house a little bit closer now. And there's a shop and another property here.
Yep, and at one time it heated those too. I just have no use for it right now, so it's basically cold storage. Both buildings
Okay.
are.
So this is
but-
about halfway.
So yeah, so this is the pump pit. So the water is pumped down there at the boiler, as you've seen,
Uh-huh.
and then there's another pump in here, and then it goes up to the house. Oh, that's frozen. And that's it.
Oh, wow.
If you come over on this side, you can actually see.
Oh, that's deep in there.
Yeah.
How big is that space down there?
I don't know, I'd say it's a unused, it was never used for it. This is a septic tank that I buried in the ground, a clean septic tank. I used it as a manhole, basically.
Okay.
So, yep.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Yep, and that houses the pump. And there's a switch down there, a couple switches,
Uh-huh.
to turn the pumps on and off. But I'm actually going to do a change here in the spring. I'm actually going to mount a 4x4 here coming up with a receptacle and a plug. And knock on wood, if I can get through this winter, knock on wood, I've never had this happen, but I've always been afraid if the power went out for several days, if we had a bad storm, I'm going to have to drain all the water out of these lines so it doesn't freeze because of the pumps. So I'm actually going to mount a receptacle and mount, or wire this pump to a plug, so it actually plugs in right up here above ground. And then if the power ever goes out, I just put a generator here.
Okay.
Put a generator here, and my system will still run.
That's a fantastic idea. Now, Aaron, do you ever worry about flooding down there or anything?
No, because I'll tell you why. Being an excavating contractor, this is a tip for everybody too. These pipes, these outside wood boiler pipes, unless you use, there's a brand called Thermopex, which is very expensive. Nobody can afford it, especially for 500 feet. I hit the cheaper pipe here. I have the bubble wrap stuff. But the problem with that stuff is they usually fail because after a while the outside casing, the drainage tile that the insulated PEX is in, it'll develop holes. And actually sometimes when it's brand new it has holes in it, little pinholes, because it's drainage tile. So the standard for drainage tile isn't as high as like for a sewer pipe or a water pipe. So what happens is the groundwater gets in there and it robs all your heat. Okay, so what I did here, being an excavating contractor, I actually have this pipe, I have it down as deep as I could go, where I still could daylight a drainage tile. So this pipe is about 4 feet deep.
4 feet deep, okay.
Underneath that pipe is a drainage tile pipe with stone and fabric, like you would use for a French drain around a basement.
I see.
So it keeps that pipe completely dry all the time. You know,
Wow.
so that pipe will never get any water on the outside, no groundwater on the outside or anything. And that's why in this run from that boiler to that house with that cheap pipe,
Yeah.
I'm only losing 7 degrees.
That's it?
7 degrees from there to the
Yeah.
house.
Because it is a long distance.
It is 500 feet.
Yeah.
And it
Wow.
it actually might even be less than 7 degrees if I were to add an additional pump and get more flow, because see, you have to understand with these boilers, the less flow you have as far as the water going back and forth,
Yeah.
the more heat you're going to lose because it stays in that pipe longer. You know, but I can live with 7 degrees. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, you know,
And ground freezes down to 3 feet?
about 5 feet.
About 5 feet
Yeah.
here up in upstate New York. Okay.
Yeah, but again, you know, these pumps are always circulating. So
Okay.
I mean, you could bury these boiler lines a foot under the ground because it's always circulating. My theory was,
Yeah.
the deeper I could go, the warmer the ground is, because you know, you get down 4 or 5 feet, that soil is, you know, it could be 50 degrees. So
Good.
you know, that's why I went so deep. But if you're going to go that deep and you're not using like a Thermopex or a really good quality sealed pipe,
Yeah.
you really should spend the money and put the drainage tile underneath it if you can. If you know, if you have a low area on your property like mine, I didn't point it out, but on the back of that boiler, it drops down and it daylights there.
Yeah.
So you know, in the springtime, that'll run. You can actually see the water running right out of the drainage tile, which means that my boiler pipe that's a foot above that is dry. It stays dry.
Cool. All right, guys, I want to thank Aaron for showing us around and telling us how he built and how Big Red functions. I hope you guys learned a lot. Aaron, any last words? Any thoughts?
Not really. I
Okay.
can't think of anything.
Well, you
I'm
showed
gonna
us
go
a lot.
get warm. I know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think it went up to 12 degrees Fahrenheit, and yeah, my fingers are frozen, my feet are frozen. But Aaron, call me and let me know when you use that big machine
I
to split
absolutely
the wood.
will. Yep.
I would love to see that.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
Aaron, thank you. Thank you very
nice
much.
to meet you.
Okay. Thanks again, Aaron, for showing us your boiler. I was very impressed with that gasification unit. Now, if I ever had to replace my central boiler CL6048, I will have to go with one of their gasification units. Obviously, I can't build one like Aaron can, but yeah, I'm very impressed by that particular type of boiler.